Just wanted to say welcome to everyone. So excited to have you here. I'm Tara. I'm from EduFlow, and we run a lot of different courses. Some are free, some are self-paced, and we've been also running some webinars. And so what we'll do after our session with our expert is we'll create a mini course where we'll put the recording, give you a chance to have a discussion about the recording, and also share a bunch of resources. So during our time, you can feel free to engage with us in the chat, tell us questions, say hi, share insights. At the end, we'll have a short Q&A session, and so we can answer some specific questions from our session. But I'm so excited to have Danielle Wallace here today, and we're talking about marketing and what we can learn from marketing, especially in learning and development and instructional design, to help us glean some lessons and learn some tidbits. So I'm so excited. And so I'll introduce you to Danielle and let Danielle take it away.
Good afternoon and good morning to everybody here on the call. I'm delighted to be sharing with you some of the secrets that marketers use to make their messages stick. And these are the same techniques that we as learning and development professionals can use to make our messages stick. We'd love to start off actually. If you could just put into the chat, what is a memorable ad that you may recall? Could be anything. Put this into the chat. We're seeing right off the top, people have certain elements that are springing right to mind, whether it's insurance, which often comes up as catchy, Whole Foods, Allstate, Coca-Cola ads, Charmin. I used to work at Procter & Gamble, iPhone ads, KFC. Oh, this is good. Car ads for the music, that emotions that come through the music, an e-commerce ad. These are awesome. Would love if one person can share, because we are global, these are very regional specific ads. If there's anything somebody could share about one of their ads, actually, and or maybe even Elizabeth conveying hers, which is, I'm trying to get a sense of why it is that these types of ads are memorable. Elizabeth, would you like to share and build upon what you put into the chat, or anybody else? Just feel free to actually unmute yourself and share why this ad is memorable to you. Elizabeth is saying Christmas ads, and because it resonates with a lot of people, so it has that applicability, so they understand who their audience is, people who are celebrating Christmas. And it resonates, she shares, because people can see themselves in it. So they have that empathy, and then it's brought to life through other emotions that come through with it. Exactly. And Meglina also picks up on that. It's this string and this thread of emotions that helps make the message stick. And we'll speak further to that in our time today, whether it's something as humor, as Debbie is saying, or whether it is something even as Patrice is saying about the music that helps convey that. These are all elements that we'll be speaking about in today's session. Specifically, what we'll be doing is going through some of the techniques that create effective training. Thank you so much for sharing those high impact ads. What's amazing is you could actually remember this despite not having seen it recently. The messages stick. And this is important because my former life, my secret for you, if I may, is that I'm a recovering marketer. So prior to my life in learning and development, I worked at Procter & Gamble. I created campaigns. I created a marketing strategy that helped drive change and helped make messages stick. I now have the privilege of putting those skills now into learning and development, where I also have the opportunity to make messages stick through my organization, Beyond the Sky. And specifically, what I love to share with you are those times from my marketing world when I was over on the dark side, and how we could use having your visually depicted message and how that can create impact. Secondly, the role of concise text. I'm sure through all of your examples that you've shared, whether it's Jennifer saying about the Coke ads and how they have that, she was able to delineate that crisp tagline of a message that brings people together. That's pretty concise. Emotions, again, which came up repeatedly in your examples, and humor, which also came up. So being able, as Debbie is saying, you'd be able to laugh at ourselves or laugh with the audience at play. And all of this, we're looking into how to drive this into learning and development. So I'll be sharing with you marketing examples, and we'll be applying them to learning and development. The first element to do that is this idea of really visually depicting your message. This is where things,
we can't
yes.
see your screen.
Oh, let's share that.
It looks like we're already sharing. It just looks like there's maybe that Mentimeter is in front of the presentation.
It's not, but no problem. What we will do.
Yeah, should we try unsharing?
Yeah.
Try it stopping the
work?
share. Oh yeah, perfect. Visually depict message.
You got it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for letting me know. So these where things all come into play because marketers depict our message visually really well. This is where they excel at and where we can learn from. I'll be sharing with you a video. What I love you to do is actually be able to go to Mentimeter and be able to list down what it is that you liked about it. So watch this ad and feel free to answer in Mentimeter. There is sound playing.
You get used to pet odors in your car. You smell nothing, but your passengers smell this. Eliminate odors you've gotten used to for up to 30 days with the Febreze car vent clip.
Wow, it smells good in here.
So you and your passengers can breathe happy.
So that was an advertisement about Febreze and a short commercial. Would love you to put into Menti, either select why this ad is memorable. Is it memorable because the problem is depicted using images? The words are used clearly to describe the problem. It's a realistic scenario, or the tagline is concise. And as Brenda's saying, yeah, it's sort of like Dumb and Dumber with its humor approach. So put it into the Menti if you can, or put it into the chat, and would love to get your reactions as to why this ad is memorable. So we're seeing most of the responses coming in right now because it's memorable because of the visual. So the problem is depicted using images. Yeah, that is exactly it. Although all the other elements are important things at play, but what really makes us hard hitting is that aspect. And this is because the visuals are a key message to have your learning points stick. So with effective marketing executions, each image and interaction is carefully designed to convey the needed message. And this is important because it helps ensure the message sticks with the learner. As a result, you can reduce the length of the video or audio or e-learning or text. And then thirdly, people can understand the message faster. Now, how to do this? How do you actually get your visuals better depicted? So think about what you can do to put visuals to describe your meaning. What images come to mind? Use this as a springboard to harness ideas. So some simple and free techniques in order to help you do that is to firstly use analogies. So brainstorm and maybe use analogies to help display critical concepts. Like with a car commercial, we saw your car is like a smelly sheepdog. It's because these analogies are easy ways to help you ideate that. And we saw that because they intentionally chose this really heavy, smelly sheepdog with its moppy hair. Very much there's intentionality but bringing this analogy to life. Secondly, ensure your messages are conveying the concept. Really, I just push you to try harder to have your messages be able to convey your meaning, even if you have no text. And then thirdly, challenge yourself just to replace the words as much as possible. And maybe an easy way of doing this is just Google your concept and see what images come to mind. Whether it's typing in risk, so compliance risk course, and up comes shields. Okay, umbrellas. There's different ways of having a concept come to life with visuals. And I'll share some examples of that. So imagine this is for D&I training. Put into the chat what this message of the course could be. So imagine this is D&I training. What is the possible message this image conveys? Everything, as Terry is saying, from being gender neutral. You're saying is visually depicted here, reducing the stereotypes of gender because we're erasing it. No differentiation between genders, even breaking up. These are all, again, gender neutrals coming through. These are all ways of communicating a message, whether it is equality, whether it is erasing the stereotypes or redesigning the gender roles, as Steve and Philippe are saying, or as Magdalena is saying, there's just no division anymore. We've erased that. And these are all messages that you're able to depict without any words here on the screen. It's brilliant. Another example here is from this would be, consider this as product training. So imagine this would be the idea of having chips as your everyday meal consumption. So think of Tostitos and such. We're able to convey a message without any words. I would love you to take a moment to think about and maybe put into the chat if you've used visuals yourself to depict your training message. And if you have, maybe what went well, or if not, what's something you may want to try different in the future? So again, put into the chat how you've used visuals to depict your training message. And I'll share with you some of what other people have said very recently. Some of the things that people say that they would do different in the future is to have some intentionality behind the images they're picking. And by that meaning, have enough time to choose the right image so you have a chance of it conveying the right message. As Greg is saying, having the visuals tell the story of the training topic better. Or as Karen is moving to, which we'll speak about in other sections as well, using these visuals to evoke emotion. And someone actually even has a specific example of how they're using a visual, the yin and yang symbol, to represent the digital well-being as balance between online and offline life. That's a brilliant depiction because right there, I can see your visual and I get that this is balance and it's offline and online. Your message is conveyed, even though there's no words being attached to it. And then as others are saying, things that have worked well, as Jennifer and Angeline are saying, Jennifer is saying, is to use actual visuals that depict the training piece. So if it's a technical training, actually show, it's a product training, let's show the product. If it's a system training, let's show some of the systems. And I do encourage everybody, as Elizabeth is saying, to try to use images to replace words. This is where we all can collectively really up our game. And there's even further benefit, as Philippe is saying, to take it to the next level, of use these images to convey meaning and use them recurringly. So not only are people understanding it, but they're immediately drawing the connections when this topic is revisited again. This is brilliant. So I do encourage you to look at the chat and write down what it is that you'll be doing different as a result. And I will be asking for this at the end. So a lot of rich discussion in the chat. I encourage you to grab and take away your own next steps. Because besides having the message visually depicted, marketers successfully use text or copy, as it's called. So while we've got powerful visuals, we can reduce the text. We can even take that a step further. In the marketing world, I only had so much space on a bottle of Olay when my brand team redesigned those packages. So I needed to constantly think of the words of my word choice. So hence, think compelling, concise copy. I'm showing here some examples of a nonprofit organization marketing. And as I do, take a look at the use of the words and the word choice. As context, research uncovered this powerful insight that smokers who intend to quit have often tried before but failed. And it was this fear of failure that was holding them back. What they didn't realize is that it could take as many as 30 attempts to succeed. And multiple attempts are actually normal and part of the process. Nothing to be ashamed about. As a result, there was a multi-channel campaign. I'm only showing you little bits of it here through some concise text examples, but it was ran through more fuller messages in various streams. In considering what you are seeing as text on these pieces, take some thought to put into the chat about what it is you like or dislike about how the text itself is used. So put into the chat what you like or dislike about the text on these ads. And as you do that, I'll share some other insights that others have shared as well. What people want more of is understanding the rest of the message. So these are very concise, short text pieces. What's missing that provide the hook, what's missing people are sharing is the rest of the message. As Olga's saying, the wordplay is really clever and how bold the statements are, it really hits home. And as Rachel's saying, this is short in length, which creates the high impact and meaning. And that's further heightened, she's really picked out by the intentional font and the capitalization. That's a great visual insight you've added to that. And as Stephanie's saying, even if the choice of words, which is again, very intentional with this, it's subverting the phrase. So failure is not an option, which is what we typically hear. And instead reframing that, a failure is an option. So they're very short and sweet, as Felice and Carolina are saying. It could come through, as Jennifer's saying, is maybe a bit aggressive. Again, missing maybe the rest of the context, which elaborates on this. But they really have a means of, if for their narrowly defined audience, of being a way of capturing attention on that. And as many people are saying, though, it does go to knowing your message, as Michelle and Jackie are saying. Because of that wordplay, it actually off the bat, without closer context, the message may be mistaken, like failure is not an option. So what was actually great with this is that the campaign worked. So the visits and time spent to the Ministry of Health site dramatically increased. The Ministry of Health site for quitting resources grew from 12 to 28% following that campaign. And 69% of people who saw the ads during the campaign were significantly more likely to have sought out quitting information, compared to 38% that did not. And even time spent on the site was 3 times more the average. So from a campaign standpoint, the hard-hitting message and that deliberate juxtaposition caught their audience's attention, their very narrowly defined audience, to create a message that sticked. So how then can we take some of the success from those executions and put them into our practice when creating learning and development. The first is this idea of stopping power. So when I was creating out-of-home ads and in-store ads at Procter & Gamble, we had this robust framework for evaluating ads, including this concept of stopping power to ensure effective recall and recognition. So practically speaking, this means that when you're strolling down the grocery store, you actually stop and look at the shelf talker ad, or you look at the transit ad as you're walking past it. So while the creative execution and visually depicting the message play a big part, which we've spoken to, this use of concise text is critical. And this goes hand in hand with the idea that less is more. So again, in the marketing world, the idea of less is more comes into effect when you are going down the highway and you need to be able to understand that billboard in the 1 second that it takes for you to see it as you drive past. So consider, ask yourself in the training world, if your learners can understand your message by skimming, yes, skimming your text, not by whether they can read it and reread it and come circling back. All of this really does help drive message recall. And then the third element is don't use jargon. So big words and jargon are rarely appropriate in marketing and training materials unless you're in a highly regulated technical field. But even then, your learners will probably prefer you use simple words or it just sounds like you're trying too hard. One of the most important factors to write an effective marketing message is to be able to understand your copy, your text, and then write in a way that speaks to them. The same thing is true for learning and development. So I encourage you to review the text and go through for excessively big words or jargon and really look at what's the plain language approach to be able to drive a very concise message. So how do you actually put this into practice? What are practical steps that you can do? Comes firstly to this idea of the keep it simple rule of copywriting. So remove all the filler words from your work. Words such as really, that, very, should just be deleted without mercy. They're not adding. Secondly is the TMI rule of copywriting. So focus on what you need to know, not on what's nice to know. This is often tricky when working with subject matter experts. I know that it's difficult to ensure all our stakeholder needs are met, and it is difficult to focus on what is essential and distill that. Keep trying. And perhaps there's some alternative methods that we've had success with in ensuring that all stakeholder needs are met and the learner experience is optimized. Consider things like putting the nice to know information in a job aid, for example, without really dampening the learner experience. And then stakeholders can feel assured that yes, all parts of the policy are there, or all the longer nice to know information is indeed captured. Thirdly is the red pen rule of copywriting. Think about how you can ruthlessly omit a significant portion of your work. So go through and take out 20% of it. I actually tell my team to take away 40% of the work. And this rewrite resulted in a very concise, hard-hitting, high-impact course with, of course, stakeholder input to some of the nice to know information on a separate piece. But altogether, it works. And it really helps drive the concise writing. We'd love to get some insights on your own examples, and I'll share with you some other examples here from a learning and development perspective. Here's the before example where the nice to know, actually it was important information, was included as a pop-up of text. Somebody wants to add something. Let's relook and find a better way of that. Here's that same example with the visuals we described about prior and the concise text being played into this. Now, what are some ways that you may have done this? We're going to go to the next Menti question. And if you could put in which are your biggest areas of concern? Is it concise text or such? We also have jargon-free language, simple explanations, and understanding the content sufficiently to write it. So put this into the Menti. We're seeing some things change here. This always is so fascinating to see where the priorities are for any given group. So I'm seeing here the priorities are coming through as this ability to have concise text. Less so about the jargon-free language. Perhaps we have a grasp on using plain language. So I think are really opportunities there are for concise text, follow with a couple of simple explanations. And one key to enable simple explanations is actually understanding the content sufficiently ourselves in order to write clearly. So with that at play, we are going to think about how to put this in to a format that not only has visually depicted message and concise text, but leverages emotions as marketers do, and as so many of you have shared as examples in the beginning of the memorable ads. I'm going to play this ad by Sarah Dewar. Her YouTube channel is available for anybody to subscribe to. She created this herself. It's in her own voice. And after I play this, we'd love to get your reactions to what you're feeling as a result of this.
My mom has Alzheimer's. Over the past few years, I've noticed some subtle changes in the way we communicate with each other. As her disease progresses, those changes are becoming more noticeable. 5 years ago, this would have been a normal conversation path for the two of us. We'd travel along the conversational path together, side by side. Admittedly, sometimes I would get distracted and stray from the path. I think that's pretty normal. Now, it's different. We might start on the same path, but soon Mum finds an old path to travel along. I hop over to that path and join her there. Then she finds another old path. It doesn't mean that we aren't having a conversation and that we aren't traveling down a path. It's just that the path changes as we talk. Mum will revisit the same landmark several times, so I just have to back up and join her there. I naturally want to resume where we left off, but for Mum, this is where the conversation is. These old paths are good for Mum. She knows them well and they're comfortable for her. When we chat, I let her choose the path, or paths, and enjoy the conversation as we travel along. If she revisits the same place more than once, I treat it as if it was the first time, for both of us.
And sadly, Sarah's mother passed away a few months after that. Love you to put, I see some reactions, but love you to put into the chat what you're feeling upon watching this. Magdalena put a nice example of heart faces, hearts and love. And mentioning she found the explanation of what's going on very good, and it makes her a little sad. Sarah does in all her videos, and I encourage you to check out her YouTube channel. She does a good job of explaining through visuals her main message. And there's definitely this feeling of sadness, relatable, emotional. And I'll put through that at the end, I'll put Sarah Dewar's YouTube channel. She's a friend of mine, and her explanations are phenomenal. And they elicit empathy, as Jose is saying. So relevant. And this is all in a really super short, like, training video. And we see it so many times in commercials as well. because when we use emotions, it helps make the concept heart or mind opening. When done well, emotions make you think about this topic, in this case, Alzheimer's and conversations. It makes you think about it in a new and more motivational way. Maybe I, and me, Danielle, upon seeing this, can take a deep breath when my mom keeps having repetitive conversations and think, okay, great, I can actually take action from this video. And this idea of emotions can also be applied to other examples. Here's an example of how it could be applied to an anti-bullying course with a key visual. I'm going to share with you another example of how it can be brought to life through an onboarding program. And as I share this next example, I want to come back to what somebody said recently about the Alzheimer's Path video, because it's certain things like that intentional choice of music that are really adding to it. It is those things that are getting to it. So take a look at this from an onboarding training example and think about those roles as well.
Wouldn't it be nice to start again? To press a button and reboot everything? To rewrite your story on a fresh sheet of paper? To reset life to a time before money controlled everything? Before the missed payments, the regrets, the overdue notices? Before debt took your life? Wouldn't it be great to start over again?
And what's cool about this is that this is a very breakthrough message for an industry that's not typically connected to such an emotional tie. So this idea of meshes and the visuals helps send a strong impact. We'd love to get a sense of how you yourself may have used emotions in your training. Have you used it to convey your message? Or if you're giving training in person, have you used emotions in a way to help relate to your audience? Put into the chat how you've used emotions. And as I do that, I'll get, so Cassie's saying with change management to acknowledge the pain points. Yeah, and that really helps also relate to it. Adrian's talking about a case study about malaria. What did the family do right and wrong? Oh, I love that. That's a great example, Adrian, because immediately I can get a sense for how you're using emotions that are on the learning point. It's actually getting people to understand what can be done different or not, which is, I'm sure, is what you're actually trying to teach training on. That's amazing. Or humor, which we'll speak to next. And as Michelle's saying, using emotions when the topic lent itself to emotions. This is also key. In her example, working with shelter dogs. So we're really getting at how best to use emotions, and we'll actually dial that up a bit when we speak about the use of humor. I do really want to emphasize, though, everything you're saying with this rich chat discussion, such as Rachel is saying, is using emotions that are on point. So using it at the what's in it for me at the beginning of a course to get buy-in. This is actually a secret to how to use emotions in a technical training, because normally there's people say, I can't use emotions. It's exactly what Rachel is saying. Or whether it's others that are saying using emotions to acknowledge being overwhelmed as a new hire. All of these are on point. So I truly applaud you for this. Typically, people don't always use emotions that convey your message. So you're bringing together everything we talked about so far, and we'll dive deeper into the use of humor, the number one emotion I'm asked the most about. I'm going to play this commercial and tell me what you think.
I finally found affordable car insurance with Desjardins, so I can quit my second job.
Hey, do the dance!
My second job was so much worse.
Great rates for young car owners.
I have 2 degrees.
Because you have better things to worry about.
So what do you like about how humor was used in this ad, and what do you not like about how humor was used in this ad? And I think there's only a handful of people that will have seen this ad before, based on where people are from, which is excellent. So with your fresh perspective, as Ashley is saying, what they like is that it's, I have 2 degrees. So that funniness, that humor is coming out and it makes it relatable, as Rachel is saying. Mark also, Brenda and Jackie are all really commenting on the humor in this ad, which is all about him having 2 jobs and he's dressed up as a pizza man. Elizabeth is saying is you expect the job you see is when he quit and then it's not. That surprises you a little. So the element of surprise, like juxtaposition. And there is well, it's cute. There is the other side that it has a darker side to it, but the economic realities. So in general, people are reacting to the humor itself in the piece. What I will say though, and I'll come back to this ad, I would say is don't do humor for the sake of humor. So just as you so eloquently had examples of emotion that were all conveying your point that you wanted to convey, whether that was what to do to prevent malaria or the what's in it me for your course to solicit buy-in. All of that was on point. Same thing here. So don't use a picture of this laughing child, which has no purpose whatsoever, but maybe to make you laugh. Instead, ask, is the humor on the learning point? It doesn't matter if it was entertaining. It doesn't matter. What matters is that people are taking away your learning point. And you want to ensure, as a result, the humor doesn't overpower the video. And as Michelle is saying, where's the beef? So no one knew which restaurant it was, but there sure was a memorable commercial. Yeah. And without the marketing budget that our marketing counterparts have, we as learning and development don't have the opportunities to drive a strong brand or to drive our message across multiple touch points to get people to make the connection. This is our one chance with using humor, and it should be on the point. So put into the chat what this ad was about, if you know what it's about. I forgot already. Yeah. And we may have some Canadians here who would recognize the brand name, which is a benefit from this. So it is car insurance from Desjardins, for those who may have recognized this. The challenge with this execution piece is if you're not familiar with the brand or not paying attention, your takeaway visual is this: pizza man. Okay, I feel hungry. I want pizza now. And as Lena is saying, it felt like Canadian humor. It's intentionally self-depreciating humor. Without any context to this, no, you want your humor to be on the learning point. So let's flip this around. Now let's look at an effective example of humor. And think about what makes this ad memorable as you're watching it.
While spry and agile, the young gazelle is no match for the raw speed of the magnificent cheetah. However, outfit a human with a pair of Skechers Go Run 2 running shoes, and you never know what might happen. Introducing Skechers Go Run 2 with midfoot strike technology. They're designed for speed.
So if we turn ourselves to the Menti as well, take a sense to start to put in what it is that makes this ad memorable for you. Is it because it uses a National Geographic special for drama and realism? Humor reinforces how you can be in tune with nature. The humor is about Skechers giving you super speed, or it's about what can happen in real life. And as you do that, as people are saying, it's just absurd humor, but the product is the key feature. The element of surprise, as Ashley is saying, yes, very carefully and intentionally done the surprise element, which is what we as learning development can also pick up when we're using humor. Metaphors, humor, analogies, these are all free and easy ways to help drive our message. And it reminds me of a small child with new sneakers. I actually just bought these sneakers as well. Let's see if I can run through this appropriately and run as fast as a cheetah. And as Michelle's saying, it builds excitement because it isn't predictable. So everybody is basically saying that the humor is about Skechers giving you super speed. The humor is really on that learning point. So with that then, how can you use humor in your learning solution? The takeaway is that it's just not about just being funny. It's making you think about the concept in a new and more memorable way that's there for heart and mind opening. So you should be using humor to capture, sustain, and reward the learner's attention while bringing the learning point to life. As I watch this next video, think about how humor is used. This is streaming online from Kathy Moore's YouTube channel. And you may notice when you're watching her video how the message is visually depicted. You may also notice use of emotions and the use of concise text. So keep all these into play. And afterwards, I'll ask you about what it is you like about how emotions are used. We need to cut it off there in the interest of our time, but want to get your sense of what it is you like about how humor was used. I felt that in my soul, Terry saying, I can relate. So she's done a great job of understanding her audience, which is us, because it is so relatable. A key insight here is it's relatable to us. If you show this to another audience, they don't get it at all and they think it's silly. But to us, as Virginia's saying, it's really an honest feeling of what we're feeling. And she's visually portraying that. So overwhelmingly, it's the shared experiences that Kathy is bringing to us as her audience and the visible frustration in it. In terms, and this is all wrapped through in how the humor was used. Also encourage you to put into the chat things you like about how visuals or emotions were used to convey this message. We all have a strong takeaway from this about being able to relate when we're working with SMEs. And as Amina is saying, we got that message, even though almost no text is there. It's not needed. It's likely a low budget, as Greg is saying, but it becomes so relatable. Especially because, as Tara is saying, these are just even stick figures. Like there's nothing getting in the way of us being able to be in that learner's shoes. So it's this very intentional choice of visuals and text. And the music, as Terry is elaborating, make it feel like it's giving the emotions. And it make it feels like this unexpected, the hero to be a superhero, but yet it's us. It's us. So there's a deliberate intentionality in the music, in the concise text, and this black outline of iconic figures are at play. I would love you to get a sense from yourself if you have actually used humor within a learning solution. So put this into the Menti, and some of you have already. If you've used humor, and is it too risky? You have, but you know, only you got it. Or hey, maybe it was fantastic. Maybe it worked really well. So I'm seeing some good tries of using humor, and I encourage you to keep trying. And for those of us that haven't used humor yet in a learning solution, I also encourage you to, take this first step to try. Think about what are some of these techniques that you can pull away and use humor so it's on your learning point and it's relatable enough that everybody gets it. So with that at play, we'd like to summarize what we've learned so far. We've talked about the idea of visually depicting your message through the right visuals that in turn allow you to have more concise text. This is powered with emotions that can drive your message. And one of the most trickiest messages to convey is humor, and effective using the emotion of humor to drive your learning point as we incorporate all of these into learning and development. I'd like you take the opportunity now to put into the Menti what is one thing you want to be using a year from now, whether it's understanding your content better so you can create more concise text, whether it's pushing yourself to use analogies, to use visuals to explain your concept, or whether it's taking the first baby step at using humor. So as Greg's putting in the chat, you can quit using humor as something funny to one person isn't funny to the next. So true. And that even in itself, for many of us, could be actually our action step and takeaway. And taking the time, if we're using humor, to find something that's funny to all of us. So put into the chat, what's one thing you want to be having as a takeaway from this? I'm seeing this idea of using humor, concise text, and visuals, whether it's replacing text with images, using more concise text, or harnessing emotions, or the keep it simple rule. Take away this one practical thing that you can put into practice. This is great. Keep them coming. What I will say is I'd love you to let me know how it goes when you're putting these into practice. I can be reached on LinkedIn with my contact information here. And I also have, if you're interested, further some information I can share out that helps you just dive a little bit deeper into this. So it allows you to have a better understanding of marketing campaigns, which I spoke to, that put into practice all of these elements, visuals, text, emotions, into a learning development format. And I'm happy to hear from you on LinkedIn and see how it is that your executions are coming into place with these techniques. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Danielle. If everyone else wants to, in the reactions, there's a little applause button that you can add, or you can say thank you in the chat, and just appreciate your time today. I wanted to add in just a little plug for EduFlow. We mentioned SMEs and collaborating and building strong relationships with them. EduFlow actually has a really great course on building relationships with SMEs. So if you haven't checked it out, I'll just pop the EduFlow Academy link in there and you can go look for our SMEs course. We have a really great community too of learning development, instructional designers that are working towards collaborating, especially if you're on a small team where you don't have that benefit. But it was so nice to hear from you, Danielle. I really appreciate it. I see how active you are on LinkedIn. So I know if people tag you in something related to this, I know you'll respond.
Absolutely.
We have a few minutes. So if anyone has any specific questions they'd like to ask, feel free. Oh yeah, there was a question about Sarah's YouTube example from the path of Alzheimer's. I was searching for it in the background and I couldn't find it. So if you have the link to that, that'd be great. And while you're looking for that, we are going to take some of our resources and put them into a small like micro course in EduFlow. We'll put the recording of this session in that course. We'll actually add a few other resources for you. So I'll make sure to get that YouTube from Sarah, and I'll make sure that's in there. And we'll add some other little tidbits for you to take away. So we'll send that out within a week to anyone who registered on LinkedIn. And if you do have a question, feel free to either use the reaction to raise your hand if you want to come off mute, and then I can unmute you, or you can ask your question in the chat. I see Amanda has a good question about how do you suggest using marketing principles to help overcome resistance?
So if it's, I'm trying to determine if it's resistance to internal stakeholder alignment or if it's resistance from the learner's standpoint. I'll answer the second one because I think that might be maybe what it's about. So using marketing principles to overcome resistance so people are not brought into your message. I would say bring the strong what's in it for me that's really brought to life. So taking aside, of course, you know who your learner is. I have lots of resources on learner personas if you don't. So taking into consideration you're doing the right thing, the right message. There is definitely some great case studies where us and other organizations have used video to drive that what's in it for me to help, whether it's from a change management perspective or just communication or just buy-in, to be able to overcome that resistance. And often it's, of course, getting to the right objective, but often that can be with the use of emotions at play. Oh, and Samantha's saying, sometimes managers don't want to buy in. So if it's internal, I would say this comes back to the SME course actually that Tara was saying, and a lot of I'm sure our principles to engage your stakeholders, have a good understanding of the business objectives, being able to tie your initiatives to the business objectives, you're meeting business needs. So, and I'm sure there's amazing courses on EduFlow to help support that. Oh, Sarah Dewara used Camtasia for that. She was fooling around and she just created an amazing channel. And
There was another question earlier. It was kind of hard to, like, there was a couple places where it was, so I compiled it together. It was about the point about having images on the screen, replacing words with images. And there was a question about what happens when people get different meanings when there aren't words. And then later we talked about the context behind the message. And so was curious if you could speak a little bit more to that.
Yeah, so we've used, so in that D&I example, for example, there was a very deliberate course. The course had a title. There's a very, you knew what the course was about. So whether that's a great example of whether it's erasing gender lines or it was about like gender fluidity, the course at play was very, very clear. So in that context, people knew what that visual was about because the whole course was about that. So taking that to a step further, though, it is important that people have enough context and that you are providing them with enough support. So key visuals in themselves would never be used without anything because normally you have some type of message you need to convey beyond just one visual. So they would always be accompanied with something. What we're able to do in those examples that I'd shared is it helps reduce being able to explain and have all the added details about whether it's erasing gender bias or whether it's about gender fluidity and such. Like it helps reduce the amount of text that's needed to support that. Great question.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions that anyone has? Either type it into the chat, we'll give you a moment to do that, or you can also raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Excellent. Okay, cool. Wow. Thank you so much, everyone. Ooh, we have to do one more question from Michelle. Did you answer about humor in learning trainings? Oh yeah, the question was about if there's any workshops using humor in L&D successfully. Just curious to know more about that.
Oh, that's a great opportunity. I haven't seen anything. I'm just scanning my Rolodex of all the conferences I attend. I've not seen that.
I really liked what you said, Danielle, about the using humor initially in sort of a training that's required. I can think of like a cybersecurity training, which isn't super exciting. but using humor in the beginning of the cybersecurity training in some certain way to just to help people feel connected and realize, yeah, this is important. We can't skip past this. The feeling of like, oh, I just want to click slide and not really read it, and the reality of things like that.
Yeah, some good examples. So if you're looking for just examples of examples of humor, less so about a workshop on how to create it, the TechSmith Academy. If you go to techsmithacademy.com, they make Snagit and such. They have a brilliant free online academy that they actually put into practice these normally with humor before the technical training. So it's a good example of using a humor effectively and like in 15 different times, and then B, using a video before technical training, because that often comes up as an issue.
Awesome. Excellent. Well,
and then one
thank
thing I
you so
wanted to
much.
point out actually on that, it helps us, as Michelle is saying, it helps us even go beyond just using a meme or a scene from a movie, which often we do in training, completely agree. But those examples that I've shared really help us dial it up to the next level, to ensuring that humor is on the learning point, just as everybody here is so effectively doing with their emotions. So I think we got it as a group, and I encourage everybody to take it to the next level.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Danielle. At the end of our sessions, we like to let people unmute themselves and say thank you or goodbye. And so I'm giving you permission now to unmute yourself if you'd like to say thank you and goodbye. Just everyone at once can do it. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thank
This was
you.
great. Thank you, Tara.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Danielle.
I love it. It's a little chaotic, but it's one of my favorite things.
That's a nice idea.
Awesome. Okay, well, Danielle, thank you so much. I grabbed some of your resources, so I'll make sure that those get included in that micro course. And if you have anything else, feel free to just send it to me in an email that you think of later, and I'll include it in the micro course and send it out in a few days once it's ready.
Yeah, cool. The other thing I do want to say is that like the videos are streaming, just so people know.
Oh, yeah.
There's like they're available on YouTube. They're streaming videos. Want to acknowledge intellectual property of everybody who's created those videos. So yeah, that I want to share with you, Tara.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, awesome.
Excellent. All right. I'll end the
Thank you.
meeting. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye.
Bye now.